If you're up to date with your Deltarune knowledge, this part of the Chapter 5 trailer might have stuck out to you. The fun gang walking towards a glowing white feather. This might have seemed at least a bit familiar because during the Gerson fight in Chapter 4, Gerson says, "But there is one thing that can overwrite the dark. A white pen known as hope. Miss, I believe this is what you hold." White pen is pretty explicitly used metaphorically here. He just calls it a pen because he's a writer and he's comparing the prophecy to his own story that he based off of it in this fight. So this feather that you might be able to interpret as a quill probably has nothing to do with that, right? Well, yeah, right. Except for the fact that right after Gerson makes that metaphorical statement, Susie says, "Me? Nah, Chris has the pen. My weapon's like a hairbrush or something." Susie is by no means stupid, but she seems to interpret this statement here literally. So I don't think it would be that much of a stretch to think that this white quill might be mistaken by Susie for a literal weapon called the White Pen of Hope. By the way, calling it the White Pen of Hope is something concocted specifically by the fandom. Seriously, it's never called that in-game. So with people already misremembering the metaphor used by Gerson, a lot of players might make this mistake alongside with Susie, which would make for a pretty good red herring, especially to put in the trailer just to get people's minds racing in the wrong direction. Asgore is going to make the Dark Fountain in Chapter 5, and anyone who thinks otherwise is an idiot. Oh yeah, at the risk of sounding like the most assaholic bitch if I get proven wrong, I'm being mean about this one. You might be thinking, of course Asgore is making the Dark Fountain. It's flower themed, it's going to be in his shop, and the prophecy panel from Chapter 4 clearly depicts him, and Gerson says, Chapter 5, the field of pink and gold, and the trailer shows a field of pink and gold. Plus, Asgore was acting suspicious as fuck when you spy on him at the holiday house. Of course Asgore is making the fountain, and I totally agree with you. The evidence is stacked. Except, there's one little hang-up that people have, and it's that the Chapter 5 Dark World is Japanese as fuck. Aside from taking an interest in anime at the very end of Undertale when Alphys mentions it to him, Asgore isn't exactly a weeb, and that's why some people think that Carol will have opened the Dark World. If not by herself, then in collaboration with Asgore. If you look at the reasoning, it's not hard to follow. Carol has a strange association with Japanese culture in one way, her family heirloom, the katana. We already know she will be a primary antagonist and has weird meta-knowledge about the player specifically, plus the bunker that she is very much connected to considering she keeps one of the shelter codes in her own house. This is all good evidence for her making a sort of Japanese-themed fountain, but what's with the Asgore association? The Flower Man trapped in asylum. Why is she making a dark fountain at the Flower King? Sure, they have a connection. Carol and Asgore seem to have a sort of alliance where she keeps him employed and pays his rent, even though he isn't chief of police anymore. But her cold calculation compared to Asgore's desperation makes me feel like he might be opening the fountain behind her back. So then, why the anime influence? The answer is obvious, my friend. Deltarune Asgore is a weeb, and it's because of Alphys' influence. The superhero comics you can find in his room, the superheroes that embrace on Alphys' computer, they aren't just any superheroes, they're anime superheroes. Since when has Alphys just liked plain old Western comic book heroes? It's not that her interest in anime was swapped out for Western heroes in Deltarune, because Alphys writes those anime reviews for the library. Not to mention the more obvious point, Alphys showed or recommended Mew Mew 2 to Asgore and Deltarune, and he liked it. So I don't think the Japanese theme of the Dark World hints at a collaboration with Carol, but in fact, a collaboration with Alphys. Okay. The likelihood of Alphys being in this Dark World is about the same as Sans being there. It's not really backed up by anything, then I think it would be cool. But my belief still stands that even with the Japanese influences, Asgore making this Dark World alone is more likely than with Carol. For my third and final Chapter 5 prediction, Omega Flowey is back, baby, oh yeah! You see that in the trailer? That's Omega Flowey's Patient Soul attack! What do you think it's doing here? It's not like Asgore keeps 7 flowers in the shape of Flowey and in the colors of the 6 human souls from Undertale, kept in special encasements in his flower shop away from the main shop area or anything. Do I even need to say any more? Do I need to elaborate? Actually, I will elaborate. Omega Flowey is not actually back, guys. I would be really surprised if straight-up Flowey from Undertale showed up in Deltarune. Flowey as a character is a flower covered in Azrael's dust and injected with determination. Unless Toby saw the piles of Azrael's dust theory and thought it sounded good enough to put in his game, I'm assuming that the same did not happen in Deltarune. Now, my definite prediction is that the Patient Soul attack we saw in the trailer is 100% associated with these flowers. But my speculation for how specifically these flowers will be used as a secret boss has everything to do with not Azrael, but Ralsei. This goes all the way back to when Toby Fox released the Floralsei shirt and said, "Ralsei shirt, he's always getting mixed up with flowers, isn't he?" This hasn't happened. Chapter 3 was kind of focused on Krisk, taking place with Tenna and their own mother in their own house and all. And Chapter 4 was focused on Susie with her healing magic and shit. But now the time has come for Ralsei to have a turn in the character development torture maze. The whole chapter is flower themed, but these specific flowers are closely associated with Azrael, with who, yes, I know isn't Ralsei, but come on. They obviously have some connections. What with the anagram name and uncanny visual similarity, Ralsei is still his own unique person, but come on now. What I'm thinking is, these flowers will be to Flowey what Ralsei is to Azrael. They will have a weird amount of connections and similarities, but enough differences to let you know that they are not one and the same. I'm actually really hoping this is true, because the differences between these flowers and Flowey and the human souls from Undertale can help inform us on Ralsei's nature, inform us on specifically why he is so similar to Azrael. But who knows? This could be just another Mike situation where we thought that they would be important just for them to be silly side characters. I really hope not, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. By the way, this Rudin is definitely a goner. Okay, bye.